Oneida tribe here in Oneida, Wisconsin. I was 91 years old, June 5th. My brother and sister, Anna and Amos, we three of us lived with our grandparents, and why, I don't know, but they came after us at one time. And my grandfather says, no, we'll take care of them.
I am Master Kashak. My age is 97. I came from Canada under protest. I was crying and screaming. I had to be held to walk. My mother pushed me on the train. Cried and screamed. When I was brought into this country, United States, I was unhappy for every day. I'd cry at night till I fall asleep. I'd cry for my mother, who was not there.
It was a log house. My grandfather had sort of a farm. And then in front of the house, there was an orchard. They had a nice apple orchard there, and a big tree. And they had a swing on that big tree. I remember I had a brother and a cousin, a couple cousins too, that lived in the neighborhood. If they wanted to get rid of me, they swing me on it real high. And when I'm swinging on that swing, they run. They got rid of me.
I grew up with my mother's aunt. She was a big, strong, harsh woman. She always told me she really didn't care. She always said I was stupid, lazy, good for nothing. She said that about every day. She had me work, wash dishes. Every after meal, I had to wash dishes. Took me quite a while. I was small, and I have to go out in a large garden, and I have to hold the pans. Get a pan, put corn in it, and have to go out and feed the chickens. They were always running after me.
We weren't allowed to talk English in the house. With my grandmother, we lived with my grandmother. She was very strict about those things. There were older people in the house besides us. There were my uncles, a couple of aunts. But in time, they didn't live home anymore. My grandmother never hit us. She had her own quiet way of telling us things, correcting us things. Before we go away anywhere, we had instructions how we have to act. All three of us went to government school. It's where Norbert Hill Center is now. Well, it was lonesome for sure. They took us there. After a while, I didn't see Amos around, and I don't know what happened. And I didn't see my sister around. I'm the only one there, and I'm too young to go to school because there was World War I going on at that time. And by that time, maybe I was 4 or 5 years old, or maybe 6. And I know we had to sit in the playroom and knit scarves. That was for the boys in service. And then another time, I was in the mending room. I was learning to do some mending. And well, I learned to mend socks. At that time, that I remember because I didn't like doing it. And I used to hang around quite a bit at the laundry. And this lady that worked there, she was good to me. She used to feed me, maybe give me some toast or something. And probably I liked being there because it meant I'd get something to eat.
I went to Catholic school about a mile away up on a hill. I had to walk there and back. I was about 8 years old. I learned many, many good things from the sisters. They were good teachers, taught sewing, crocheting, coloring. They encouraged in drawing. About 9 years old, before I ever found out I was Oneida, I was wondering what people were talking about Oneidas, Indians. Finally, I asked one time about the Oneidas. Well, he said, "You're Oneida." I was so shocked. I know I'm Oneida. I was glad. I thought it was nice being Oneida.
I later found out Amos had run away. He had gone home to my grandparents. And they had taken my sister out, and she took her to school at Kushina. She went to the school up there. And I stayed there, the government school, till the school was abolished. And I keep saying 1916. My aunt had worked at Mount Pleasant, Michigan, and she says, "I'm going to take him along." My grandmother says, "Take her along too." So I went. I was happy though. It meant I'm not going to walk those couple miles to school. I went there 7th, 8th, 9th. Then I went to high school after that.
Green Bay is not a big city. It took 2 hours by horse and buggy to get to Green Bay. It's an all-day trip shopping. The Green Bay house, they had a big dining room and a saloon, and they had a side that had dining room, sort of a waiting room, I guess. Ladies would come dressed so beautiful. They had silk clothes and go eat. Some man would call for a certain lady, take her to a dining room, and sometimes I was invited by myself. My foster mother, she went to the dining room too. She said somewhere else. But we leave Green Bay while it's daylight yet.
And then came this terrible sickness. I think it was called the influenza. So then we were all sick. Everybody was sick, even the people in the community. And they were all beds all over the place.
Was I right after the First World War? I just turned 15. I went to Green Bay and found a job. I was washing dishes, and the sisters told me I could have a job in Fond du Lac Children's Home. I took that job. That was my first real job.
I was 17 years old when I went to high school. They didn't send me anymore. I wanted to go. And my sister says, she took me to the train. "Are you sure you want to go?" I said, "Yes, I want to go because I don't want to get married and have a lot of kids. Not me," she says. "I'll have a dozen if I can." "Well, if you're sure you want to go, then I'll help you." She did. She sent me the money, maybe $1 here and there, but that was a lot of money because we wore uniforms there, so you didn't have to spend a lot of money on personal things. We all looked alike, dressed alike. It was all right until we had some wealthy Indians going to school there, and they didn't like wearing uniforms, so they went on strike.
I saw a lot of suffering there that I couldn't help, and they were always asking me, to get medicine for them. And I couldn't do that. I'd have to go through the office. I heard they were hiring in Wauwatosa. I wrote a letter and was accepted. And I left right away as soon as I heard from them. There, they teach nursing. You had to make your uniform. You must be in a uniform. As time went along, we'd give you more instruction of how to care for the sick. I was there 5 years. When I was, 19, and he was 19, I liked him very much. But somehow, we got to a point we couldn't agree on anything. We're always fighting. We parted, and that made me sad. I missed him. I could not get him back. I had different friends. No one serious. I didn't want any serious relationship.
I took home ec, and because I had a dream, I wanted to teach cooking and sewing but there was no such thing going on those days. I finished 11th grade, and because I wasn't getting along financially, I asked if I could go to school in Kansas City. I did. I lived with a family, went to school, but I didn't graduate. By that time, I was 20 years old. I just stayed there and worked for them when I came home. I was 21.
I went to Canada for a visit. My mother had 3 girls. My father had 13 children. It's a lot of kids. Well, he had a farm out there, and he had all Holstein cattle. And I guess he had a country store. But he went broke because the Indians didn't have money to buy what he had.
There was a bus transportation here, and I went, and I lived in Green Bay. I had a cousin that had a little apartment there, and I lived with her. I could have stayed at that hotel, but you know what it is, whites and Indians, they don't want to live with you. So then I stayed with my cousin, and I went to work over there every day.
When I first saw went back there, and I got acquainted with the girls, they were my half-sisters. They were working in Detroit, so I went with them. I didn't have any trouble finding a job, but I wasn't really like it. There was no nursing like I was doing. I changed jobs ever so often. Sometimes I was waited on tables, and I worked in a dancing studio because I could dance. And when I leave there, I could only work, they said 4 hours, no more. But they didn't say I couldn't go to another one. So that's what I used to do. Well, that was a provision time. No dancing, no music, because it was a speakeasy, so there was really no noise. Well, we used to have fun, I think, because we knew we weren't supposed to be doing that. There were no monks be drinking little beer. That was all. They go through what they call suburbs, like Tramtramck. That was a Polish settlement. But one time we were driving through there, policemen stopped us and searched the car, searched us. We didn't have any booze on us. They got mad at us. We didn't have it. So, anyhow, they let us go. Cursed us.
Can't remember if I got married 31 or 32. Oh, I knew him all the time when we went to school at the mission, Wittenberg Mission. He went to school there too. And he always said I was going to be his wife from the time we were 12 years old. But my grandmother says no. He drinks too much. But anyway, we got married knowing that too.
I was in Oneida with a relative. It was a relative. I always called her Grandma. And I stayed with her. her husband had a gas station. And so this man would come visit us with Oneida. His name was John. And he had a little boy, 8 years old. Finally, I had dates with him. And finally, I find myself married to him. I think it's because this man and woman where I stayed, they'd have a hot arguments, hot fights. I used to get so tired of listening to them. I think that's how I wanted to get away from them. So I married this guy.
He lived with his sister most of the time because she said I was awful spoiled, so I always go home, to my grandma's. It wasn't a good, happy life because we were so poor. I went to Milwaukee and worked. I hardly ever saw him. I worked in laundry 13 years. I got 15 cents an hour. But we lived on it. We little housekeeping room, You didn't have apartments like you do now.
We lived in Delafield. He worked for St. John's Military Academy, so we lived in a little village there. I had 3 children while we lived there, Hugh, Art, and Ellen. But this was some time after, there was war going on in Europe. So they had to make military things. So he found a job in Beloit. He was there almost a year, so then we were able to move. We couldn't find a place. He said he couldn't find a place. He never could find anything. So we lived in Clinton, 14 miles on this side of Beloit. It was a nice house, but it was a big house. And I was talking to this lady in the corner next to where I lived. Nice little house right in the corner. I talked her into sell us the house. We got this house cheap. I think it was $5,000. And it's close to school. So then Hugh began to go to school. And then Art got to be old enough to go to school. But he was an impossible child. I guess she'd lock him in the room because he was so naughty. There was a window there. He'd climb out of the window and he'd play. And just before the class started out, he'd run back and go back in the room. Ellen was going on 4 years old. I had trouble with it because he was so stubborn. And she insisted on going to school. So they took her as a guest. It seemed like my life had started. I had my own children, and he was around. And they loved each other. I thought that was good.
My son was about 12 when I finally divorced him.
And then when World War II came, then I went to a better job with work with more pay. First, my boss gave me a raise, 65 cents an hour. They were getting good pay in the defense plants, so I got a job, Western Metal, right here. I just went through those people's backyard to my place of work. I worked 10 at night till 4 in the morning. I had that shift so I could get my son to school, and be there for him during the day.
Oh, John was just a boy too then. But he went to St. John's Military Academy. That time then the World War was on, he had to go to war. 18 years old. He had to grow up fast. I remember I stood at the station when a train pulled away. I thought, I'll never see that boy again, as I know him. Sure enough, the train was changed him. I say, to know a man is to live with him. They don't really show their personality until they got you where they want you. Found out he wasn't what I thought he was. He liked other women. For that, he lied to me too. And he depended on me so much, he had it good. I think one of the things that I had to think seriously about my life away from John, where he said I didn't have the nerve to do it. And that is one thing that I had in my mind, that I was going to do it. And I did. And then I had a job too again. I always had a job. I found out if your kids in health, you don't have any trouble finding a job.
Ernest, because I don't call him Ernie, went to live with my mother. He finished high school there and then went to Stevens Point College. Then he went in the Marines when he was, well, he got out of school to go in the Marines. And one of my sisters signed for him. My mother didn't want to tell me he was in service, and that was without my permission. He said he would come out of service, take care of me. I said, no, stay in there, you're in there now. Steve's wife, Sherry, came one day. She had a little article like that. She said, what do you think of this? I looked at it. It's a funding for elderly people working with language. I said, gee, that sounds good. I said, why don't you work on that for Amos and I? Well, it took a year. They gave us $18,000. It took a year, but we had I forget how, 3 years, 2 years I think we had to finish it. And we did, right on the dot. I don't say that we did it, we all did it. And we have their names, those people that worked there at the time, and those that had the stories. We were just lucky we got a funding. This is my home. I was born here, I went to school here, I was married here, and I lived here. But we left here because of depression. And so now, brought my grandchildren back for it. There were no ceremonies. There was no powwow, no nothing. There wasn't. Because they were left back there. And because, you know what the government did to you, our tribes, get us away from our ways. They didn't allow you to have powwow or anything like that until I think in 1974 they abolished that. So that's when you notice that we were having powwows again. But I think some of those tribes, like the Western tribes, they practiced it on the sly. But we just went to church and that's it. We've had a very hard time. Our school started in 1979 and I had my degree and I could teach. But no matter how much you teach, how good your kids are in your classroom, they go home. There's no one there that they can talk. But now the parents are all trying to learn. So now I feel that we're going to have a language. I had a lot of unpleasant things happen with my husband and I. Well, that's why I divorced him. He drank a lot. So when you turn your life around, like I have, with my grandchildren and living the way I do, it's really a good feeling. You feel good inside.
To care for your children, look after their needs. I saw some parents that they didn't care about their children's welfare. I try to do something about it. I think sort of a parent should just focus on their minds on the children. I met him in, in a dancing studio. He was there because it started about 4 o'clock. He was there, and he had to be my partner. He had to have a partner. We teach other people too, but certain amount we had to dance with each other. He sure could dance. And then he wanted to marry me. I said I wasn't really interested. He told me he had a grant. Well, that didn't mean anything.
Well, it's not a funny one, but it's a story. Living with our grandparents, he was her pet. And so a long time ago, they used to have grapes in baskets. Did you ever see those baskets? Well, my grandma must have given us each a bunch of grapes and told us to go outside. And I guess I think I was a naughty girl, or I was abusive to him because we were out there eating, and pretty soon, Axel, Axel. No, he was yelling, he was crying. She was wanted to know what was the matter with him. Axel, Axel, you allow go hick. She wants to take my berries away from me. And so my grandma came out and she had the cover of that basket. And she comes after me like that, you know. She never hit us. She never spanked us. No, just like she's gonna kill me. And I scream my head off. Then she couldn't shut me up because she scared me. You know, she's gonna hit me. My grandmother never hit us. She had her own quiet way of telling us things, correcting us things. Before we go away anywhere, we had instructions how we have to act.